After the jolly giant finally calmed down, Konrad spoke up. Can we get back to the main stuff again please? Seeing all of this is making me sick. Come on, Konrad, it's nice to see that some of you can be happy in the future. Need I remind everyone that this future has me dead? Yes, father, you have mentioned that a good few dozen times now. 'Cause it's so important. Either way, Konrad, just let them have their fun. Or I'll see about embarrassing you next. Konrad stopped and slowly began to laugh, head thrown back as he let his entire body be consumed with deep belly laughs at how absurd the situation was. There is no way in the fething warp that I would ever have kids. Bet you're wrong. Bet you're an asshole. Okay, embarrassing you now. You wouldn't fucking dare. Twins. Alpharius and Omegan instantly perked up. Give me the VID. Horus slapped the armrests of his throne, gesturing at the twins. Oh? Now you acknowledge them. Calm down, Horus, and stop questioning what the twins do. The Emperor shot back, while the twins nearby grinned at their oldest brother. Horus threw his hands into the air and just scowled about this, but dropped the subject. What fucking VID? Konrad demanded, not caring about Horus' hissy fit about the twins. This one. The Emperor lifted a hand even as the twins flung a black-colored VID towards him. Once he effortlessly caught it, he showed it to Konrad, who instantly and violently recoiled. No! He screamed in defiance even as the Emperor chuckled. Not so cocky now, are you? You little shit! For the love of the Night Father! Don't play it! Too late! The Emperor threw the VID at Muggos Lame, who caught it with one of his mechondrites and quickly inserted it into the hollow projector. No! Screamed Konrad even as the VID played. Somehow with an even clearer picture than before. 204.M42, Macrage Magnus Civitas. It was the dead of night. The darkness of night was like a blanket over the great city, almost suffocating with its pitch blackness. The great city of Macrage Magnus Civitas was recovering from another attack, the people sleeping away their long day of work. But alas! The night was not any safer than the day. Emperor, hold up! This sounds like a kid's story. Sanguinius, I think it is a kid's story. For you see, in the dead of night is when treachery and injustice occurs. It is during this time when the hero we need and deserve will strike against the foes of mankind. Murderers, thieves, you name it. All of those who go against the laws of Ultramar will be struck down, by the hero of our tales. The Night Haunter. Horus, barely contained laughter. Emperor, this sounds like one of those cheesy early 50s cartoons. Oh! Wait! Magnus, wait, father, wasn't there some show about this very premise that you told us about? Emperor, yes. Ugh! It really hasn't aged well. Lorgar, the Night Haunter is the hero? This is just... Oh boy! The Night Haunter, he has the face of a bat, hair long and oily black as night with eyes like two black holes that stare deep into your soul and see all of the sins that you have committed. Even when wearing his armor, he makes not a sound. For he is the Night Haunter, the night is his domain as he will silently slay the foes of Ultramar. Our tale begins on another cold, rainy night. A man was escaping through the city. He knew that the sin he had committed in the day would be paid for in the night. He knew that time was running short. For the Night Haunter was on his trail. Konrad turns around and smacks head into throne. Ferris, this reads like poorly made fanfiction. The man had been skipping work, stealing food, and refused to be a part of the community. He was evil. And he must be punished as is the law of Ultramar. He stopped when he reached an alleyway with a dead end. He knew if he did not escape that. Never mind. It was too late. Fulgrim, despite it lacking production, I do like the visuals going along with this. It could use for more development and tension in the story, but for a child it isn't so bad. Lorgar, are you actually seriously giving constructive criticism for this? Rogel, yes, he is. Fulgrim, supporting a child in what they like while giving advice on how to improve is vitally important, you know. Jagatai, idly nodding. He felt the presence of the Night Haunter behind him. He could feel the shiver of fear coursed through his body as he realized that he was cornered and there was no escape. He turned around to see him, a giant of a man who was over 10 feet tall, and as wide as the alley. He shivered as he looked up at his captor, knowing his time was short. The Night Haunter grinned down at the man and then he spoke. I have come to destroy you, for the good of Ultramar. Jagatai, the quality of Konrad's lines have really dropped. Konrad, I don't speak like that. Corvus, I don't know. That's what I hear every time you speak. Konrad, I do not squeak like a prepubescent child. I have the growl and tone of a dark and brooding monster. Rogel, no. Perturabo, yay. I agree. And just like that, the illusion was shattered. Suddenly, the entire backdrop of the scene was replaced with a small boy on a makeshift stage before other kids. His voice was too high and squeaky for the Night Haunter and the illusion was shattered. Fulgrim, he made the set himself. I like the scribbled backdrop. Ferris, is he wearing a costume over his clothes? Fulgrim, I think so. Wait, my mom always said the Night Haunter was a bad guy. Said one kid from the crowd watching the display. Konrad, you're damn right. That's why I offed myself in the first place there. Rogel, quite clearly. You did not. Konrad, shut up you jolly builder Bob. Jagatai, noting something down. Perturabo, hey. Only I can tell him to shut up. Rogel, and hit me. The footage was most likely a servo skull who was passing by, the scene playing out before them below, as if they were looking down at it from somewhere above them. The boy on the stage who was dressed in an elaborate costume of Konrad stopped, then hissed at the kid, you were lied to. The Night Haunter is a good guy and he works with the Primarchs to keep us all safe and you need to sit down and stop interrupting my story. Konrad, groaning in actual physical pain. How many nights are cold and rainy? You keep saying that in all your stories. Well, cold rainy nights are where all the bad things happen. It's dramatic. So shush. Emperor, I'm getting Stan Lee flashbacks. Magnus, Stan who? Emperor, nobody important anymore, sighs in good memories. But we had a daemon attack on the city during broad daylight dash. Okay. No. Just. Your speaking privileges are revoked. Awv. Horus, and that's how we know he's a grandchild of the Emperor. Konrad, shut up. Nothing's been confirmed. Lorgar, yet. Emperor, I don't know if I should be insulted or proud. Anyway. The boy cleared his throat, going into a stance on stage before them all, continuing his story and hoping he could continue on with it without someone interrupting him. The Night Haunter comes closer to the man, and he begins to tell him of all his wrongdoings. He spoke of all of his sins and with each one, the man's face dropped, since he knew that with each spoken sin he was trapped and would be condemned. When the Night Haunter was finished he looked to the man and said in a deep growling tone, what do you have to say for yourself, you cur? Corvus, okay, that's actually a really good impression on what you should sound like. Konrad, kindly go fuck yourself little raven. One kid raised a hand and shook the boy out of his theatrical hand waving, making his drop his hands and sigh dramatically. Wait. What's a cur? The kid asked. The one on the stage smacked a hand onto his face and rubbed at his eyes, sighing, a cur is a bad person who does wrong. Like a criminal. Why didn't he just say criminal dash? Because it's more dramatic and shut up. He looked to the crowd again, waving his arms out, can I finish? Mort Arian, the kid certainly has Konrad's temperament. Everyone stayed silent. Good. So like I said. The man dropped to his knees, and began to beg for forgiveness from the Night Haunter. He tried to tell him that with his presence, he saw the error of his ways. But for you see dash. Another kid waved their hand. What? The kid shrugged, why do you always say for you see? It sounds dumb. The one on the stage made a face at the kid, it's called flair. So anyway dash. What's flair? It's just a thing to make it more exciting. Can I please finish? Oh. Sorry. Quite alright. So where was I? Oh yeah. But for you see. The man wasn't really sorry at all. He was actually trying to curry favor with the Night Haunter. He wanted to hopefully get away from this with his life and begged the Night Haunter to spare him. But you must remember, our hero is smart and cunning. He knew what the man was doing. So he readied his claws and spoke to him again, I must add lying to your sentence. Do you know what it is? He made a motion before the crowd, grinning widely as he prepared what looked to be a choreographed section of the performance. Your sentence is death. And then he charged at the man and began to tear his to pieces. Slash. Cut. Tear. And the blood. So much blood. It is the blood of someone who has done wrong. At this, the boy began to throw around red strips of cloth at the crowd, who laughed at this, his dramatic sounds of death as he acted out the brutal murder on stage. Lion, slow clapping. Mort Arian, absolutely stellar acting. Perturabo, so realistic. Better than the theater on Olympia. Rogel, no, it is not. Perturabo, I would slap you if that wasn't an indirect compliment. Konrad, slowly sliding down his throne in embarrassment. And so the Night Haunter finished his work. Another criminal was dead for the good of Ultramar. And that, folks, is why you should always be a good citizen. Or you will end up like that man who was just torn to pieces. He then dramatically fell to the ground, throwing more strips into the air above him, like he was spurting blood. The end. Konrad, face-palming so hard that his skull might cave in. Angren, I like the blood. There was some clapping while others stayed silent. Fulgrim, tough crowd. Sanguinius, they did just witness the reenactment of a brutal murder. Angren, and? They'll get used to it. Lorgar, is this normal for Ultramar? Gilliman, what? Are you kidding me? Of course not. The planet is clearly under constant threat, and to top it all off, overcrowded and undersupplied. Society tends to change under those conditions. The Harlequins are better at this than you are. Spoke up an Eldar child sitting with a few of their peers. The boy on stage sat up, strips of cloth stuck in his long hair. Hey! You can't compare me to the Harlequins. They train their entire lives and put on shows rarely. They're professional. I'm just doing my best. This was such a waste of 15 minutes, another kid spoke up. Hey! Not many shows are even put on anymore. I'm doing my best and I do this every day. No one else does. He looked at the mixed reactions in the crowd, before muttering to himself. Yeesh, tough crowd. I thought it wasn't that bad. Doesn't look that different from the real Night Haunter. Spoke up a kid who was dressed in a military uniform, quite clearly from one of the richer families who had fallen on hard times. Konrad, grumbling. Lehman, don't see the difference either, to be honest. Konrad, full-on snarl. The kid then reached into his uniform and flung a golden coin at the child on stage, who caught it easily. He looked down at it with a wide grin. An entire throne. By Macrage, he would be eating good tonight. Inspired, or at the very least, persuaded by the rich kid, the others threw their own trinkets. Many were only coppers, but everything helped when you didn't know when you got to eat next. Especially with so many fluctuating prices. The boy caught them one by one. His ability to catch them from different spots and velocities was coincidentally entertaining to a few kids who watched as he caught them all. Horus, +1 to him being Konrad's dash. Konrad, no. Whoa. You're good at that. One grubby kid said. Why don't you juggle or do more stuff like that? I dunno. I just like putting on shows more. The stage kid shrugged, waving off the crowd that was dispersing away from the little stage behind the buildings in the back alleys. Before long, he was alone as he counted his earnings for the day after shedding his costume. His smile only widened. He made good money today. His mom would have been so proud. This would be enough to stock up for an entire week for the both of them without even serious rationing. His smile slightly sagged as he sighed and remembered that she wasn't there anymore. It had been 2 years, but it never got any easier. Lehman, tough luck for the poor kid. Lion, it made him tougher. I fail to see the disadvantage. Magnus, sputters besides the obvious emotional scarring. Lion, he will get over it. There will be far tougher challenges in his life than the loss of a parent. Magnus, just from his age, losing his mother 2 years previously. If he was not half Primarch, the child would have died of starvation long ago. There isn't any way for him to grow stronger, it would just be another pointless death. Lion, then it would have proved him unworthy of the title. Perturabo, agreed. Magnus, sputters again, are the both of you just inhumane bastards? Lion, lifts eyebrow, no, merely efficient. He cheered himself up as he stored the coins in his tattered clothes and walked out of the alley. He made sure to put up a sign that said "Out for today" as he left, only to see men in robes looking over his viewers. Mandatory health checks he heard they were. But his enhanced hearing picked up on some snippets over the clamor of the crowd. Become a battle brother. Maybe, have to, parents. One of the serfs put an arm around one of the children's shoulders. Eternal glory, never alone, untouched by disease. Gilliman, I despair to see what my chapter has fallen to if they need to send out recruiters. That sounded kind of nice to him actually, and apparently it did the same to the child as he agreed and climbed into the transport parked on the busy street with the Ultramar heraldry emblazoned upon it. The boy who gave the act now frowned. Why would anyone join them? With so many useless laws and rules, and the ones who abandoned his mom and him. Then one of the serfs noticed him. Child? Come here, you seem to be the right age. The boy stumbled back, eyes wide. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't fall for their tricks. Boy? The serf questioned again, stepping closer even as he turned and ran. Hey! Get back here, we just want to ask you a few questions. The boy ran as fast as his legs could take him, which funny enough was much faster than the serfs would think. He dashed away like a space marine, already gone before they could even see which direction he went. Horus, points at screen. Need I say anything? Konrad, growling, stop it. Oh, bother. Did you see where he went? The serf asked the other, who shook their head. The boy was now firmly on their radar. If he could run like that, then what else was he capable of? The serf then had an idea as he looked down to the children around him. Children? Do any of you know who that was just now? They looked to each other and one answered, yeah. That's Damien. He performs here every day. Sanguinius, Damien. A lovely name. Emperor, in old Terran times and in an old Terran religion, that's the name of the son of the ultimate evil. Or ultimate rebel, depending on how you look at it. Lorgar, why not both? Another spoke up, he's weird, but he's not so bad. He knows a lot of weird and long words. He can also do really cool tricks and can make really realistic noises. All of us threw money at him and he caught them all. A girl spoke up, I think he lives near here. The serf nodded, yes. Yes, this boy, Damien, definitely had the makings of a strong marine. Do you know where his parents are? Nope. We think he's an orphan. The serfs gave sad sympathetic smiles. While the amount of children orphaned by the war was astonishing and stretched any social care for the common citizenry beyond its breaking point, it also made recruiting for the chapter and regiments far easier. And you said he performs here every day. Ferris, the sad reality of orphans. Every day. He puts on shows. Well. Catching him would be easy if they could just surprise him. But for now, might as well take these new recruits and see what can be done with them. The sisterhood orders would be combing through soon for candidates as well. The footage changed, another servo skull taking over as the entire market was seen from a higher vantage point. Robot, wait. It's that bad? The architecture, the housing, the overcrowding, it's that bad. Perturabo, this makes me feel sick to my stomach. Robot, thank you. I'm glad someone sees how horrible this is for the people. Perturabo, I was talking about the buildings. Rogel, hasty and ugly constructs. Inefficient use of space. Poor fortification, hasty fieldwork built under necessity more than actual planning. Robot, that is a very worrying assessment. By the time Damien stopped running, he barely even felt tired at all. He just ended up stopping because he arrived at the markets and wasn't sure if he would run someone over if he kept running. He stopped behind a particularly large stall, his head peeking out to find any of those robed guys walking around the area. The market was lively today, somewhat more than usual. In the distance he could hear various preachers talking about the emperor and all that usual nonsense. The noise of the area was nearly deafening to most. There were the sounds of the merchant stalls, people going back and forth in their daily business, workers passing by, people selling their wares. The noise was constant around him. He could also see various women, some girls really combing through the public while others gave sermons, gaining the attention of other young girls. One of them looked at him. She was pretty, shoulder-length cut hair with a scar going from one of her eyes all the way to her chin. He quickly averted his gaze, feeling a blush begin to form as he pushed forward through the crowd towards the food stalls. He passed by people who were deep into their own conversations. Two Eldar were quickly speaking back and forth at each other, almost angrily. I don't care how you frame it. I care more about keeping my family fed than whatever it is that you're doing. The human city side is better than the Eldar side. Emperor, did an Eldar just compliment humanity? Now I have truly seen it all. Jagatai, we have clearly seen it all. Fukin, this truly is a dark timeline. Really now? The Eldar side is at least cleaner than the human side, you know. I think that's only because all of you are too busy on making it cleaner and look nicer because you can't accept your craft world is gone. Besides, the human side is cheaper. The first one bit back, sighing. The other one sighed. You're right, I suppose, the other accepted with a defeated look. But I can't get used to this human food. No matter how hard I try. How do you think I feel? I used to live on a maiden world. I suppose we should give praise and thanks to Isha there is any food at all lately. Robot, considering how bad the food shortages are, no wonder the people are suffering. I wish I could do something. Emperor, I am sure you are Robot. Just in the future. Damien passed them by, not giving them much more thought. There were others, of course. Beggars holding out ancient Imperial Guard helmets. Some were missing limbs while others merely had that far-away look and were being looked after by who Damien thought was their former comrade in arms. He tried not to look at them too much as he passed them and they begged for money and food. He barely had enough for himself. Please kid. I haven't eaten for a week, a very frail one begged from the ground. Damien clenched his fists and shut his eyes. Just ignore them. Walk away. But his mother wouldn't want him to do this. He quickly reached into his tattered clothes and gave the man a few copper before pushing onward even as the man cried after him for the emperor to bless his kind soul. From 3 weeks to 2, he murmured to himself as he finally smelled the food vendors. Sanguinius, despite coming from Konrad, at least Damien is kind and generous, even when he is starving himself. Robot, kind of like Aegidius. Lorgar, perhaps there is an inherent good inside each of the prime children, like how we care for humanity in our own way. Emperor, perhaps. He steered clear away from the ones carrying what little sweet-smelling desserts and fresh breads there were. Making sure to avoid the armed guards standing by those stalls. He wouldn't be able to survive on those for long, went bad too quickly. Too expensive as well. Instead he moved and went down a flight of stairs, coming to the dreary undermarket as it was known. The noise from above was able to mask what happened down in the undermarkets pretty well. One could find anything here if he tried hard enough. Robot, fucking damn it really. Macrage Magnus Civitas was known for being able to avoid a black market for the Imperium's entire existence. But desperate times had finally caused one to form up. He could see the skimpily dressed girls. Some had bruises, others were just outright pretty. His enhanced eyes could see into some darker buildings and see some probably not much older than himself. Robot, gripping throne so hard that the metal handrest is bending. He shuddered as he fixed his eyes towards the front again. Making sure to not look around too much. Looking at the wrong person in the wrong way was enough to get chased, beaten, and robbed. Finally he got where he wanted to. Hey mister! He shouted up to the vendor, a dusty old veteran minding his stall of assorted goods. Oh, kid, you're back. What do you want? What can you get me for this? He carefully showed the throne made of gold and the vendor's eyes went pleasingly wide. Give it here. He said and Damien somewhat reluctantly gave him the coin. The vendor instantly bit into it, then closely looked at it. A pleased smile coming to his face as he spotted his teeth marks. Well, for this you can get, he started reaching underneath his stall and pulling them out. Silver plastic wrapped bars. Marked by the symbol of the Departamento Munitorum. Dozens of them. He didn't know what was in them, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. He most certainly didn't know how the grizzly veteran managed to get the tasteless rations. Sanguineous, shudders. I remember just how disgustingly those things were described to us. Emperor, soylent green. Rogel, recycled human tastes bad, who would have guessed? Perturabo, yeah, no reason to hit you. But, they were cheap. And they fed him without him suffering too much from malnutrition. So they couldn't be that bad, could they? At least they weren't charred rat. His eyes widened as the man stacked 24 of them. Enough for an entire week. Well, it'd be even longer if his stomach body didn't need him to eat so much. But still, a week was good enough. Fulgrim, I know that they are disgusting, but isn't standard Imperial Guard doctrine only one per day? One is supposed to have about 2000 calories. Mortarian, well, you need to remember that Space Marine and Primarch bodies do need more calories for growth. We burn through so many calories, we need the extra nutrients to not start tearing our own bodies up. But we are fully grown, so we can easily go even weeks without a scrap of food. But when we go back to how Damien is half Primarch, and still very much growing, we do have a base from how many calories he would need to not only grow, but to sustain himself. A growing boy would need a lot of calories by himself, but when being half Primarch, he would need a lot more. Which also explains why he's so thin. Fulgrim, sometimes it's weird to see you go into apothecary mode. Mortarian, well, then don't make stupid fucking statements that I have to debunk. His smile widened as he pulled out a hole-ridden burlap sack and quickly began piling them in, even as a man pulled up with some crates and whispered something into the seller's ear. Hey kid, spoke the trader in a grim voice. Price went up, I'm afraid. Damien looked up at him with wide eyes. What? He asked in a voice full of fear and disappointment, even as the man stared down at him in pity. They're raising an entire new regiment. Those are now way harder to come by. And to top it all off, considered alpha-level contraband. They're promising any new joining members a full meal per day. Robot, talk about it coming back to bite the populace. Emperor, you had no choice. You need defenders for the Imperium. Robot, that's the effective side, yes, and I am not doubting I made the wise choice, but it doesn't make it any easier to see my own people starve. Well, stuttered Damien. How much can I get for the money I gave you? The man sighed before his eyes hardened and he answered. 5. 5? That won't last me 5 days, with rationing, he silently added in that these would only last him a day or two. He hated how much food he needed to eat just to survive. Fukin, poor little boy, I would feed him as much as he would want to. Konrad, grumbling in his throne, totally not feeling worry or anything. The trader sighed again as he looked at him sternly, and a man wielding a stun stick stepped around the stall, looking at Damien. Then maybe not eating so many at a time? Learn to ration, kid. Damien proceeded to very reluctantly give back 15 of the bars before turning and quickly walking away with his meager rations. If only the seller knew how hard it actually was to ration for himself. He knew he shouldn't have given away those coppers. The next day, he decided to take the advice from one of the kids of yesterday. Employing more acrobatic stunts and tricks for his stage. He tried juggling last night and was pretty good at it, even found enough rocks for throwing. He got the entire crowd to throw rocks at him so he could dodge them, amazing them with his reflexes and skills. He got a few coppers that day, which was good considering that his usual crowd wasn't as thick as it was before. All because those robed guys came and took some of his customers away. With what he knew of money and how much he was making, he would barely have enough for just one bar. Great. As he was counting his earnings, his enhanced hearing picked up on the nearly silent movements of someone much bigger than him coming towards his stage. He went still, listening and waiting for whoever was trying to come at him. He craned his head, listening, and soon he saw that some robed guy was coming into his back alley. Same robes as those guys from yesterday. He clutched his money close to him and bolted, using his superior speed against them. They were running after him, their shouting voice getting softer and softer as he got away from them again. What was up with these robed guys? Couldn't they see that he didn't want them to come after him? Eventually, he ran so far, so fast, he weaved through building alleys, markets, and between some waste collectors until he was able to get to his home alley. An alley that had only one entrance and was a dead end. His mom built a nice little hole for the two of them there, hidden behind a moisture collector. He had everything he needed there, a roof to keep the rain out, some thick boards and paper as a floor so he wasn't lying on duracrete, a soft pile of cloth for his bed and cloth curtains to protect him from the wind that might blow through. He even had a metal shipping crate that he kept all his belongings in. Corvus, it's the thoughts that make the home. Lorgar, oh yes, you grew up in a mine, correct? Corvus, nods indeed, with slaves no less. We didn't have much, barely a place to sleep. But it's the thought that counts. Angron, reminds me of the slave hole I slept in when I was young. Though he was getting a bit too big for his bed now. He'd have to see about getting more bedding soon. It was big enough that his mom was able to stand and lie down comfortably. But it was home, and he didn't need much else. He collapsed down onto his bedding, letting out a sigh of relief. It was easy to get away from those robed guys, but all that running just made him hungry. What was he gonna do? His customers were thinning out because they keep getting collected, his body just keeps wanting more and more food, it was only a matter of time before he had to. No. No, he wasn't going to steal. Stealing is wrong. He believes in law, order, and justice. And stealing goes against his beliefs. Konrad finally looks up, denying the feeling of being slightly impressed by the boy's resilience and will. But did they all go willingly? What was so great about that fortress anyway? Lehman, the kid isn't bloody well thinkin' of doin' what I think he is. Robert, please no. Konrad, most surely not getting worried. He sighed as he got up and walked out of his hole towards the massive gleaming fortress in the distance, surrounded by slums, hastily constructed buildings and barracks. He could find out. Rogel, the chances of a regular human scaling the main outer walls of the fortress of Hera without equipment are 0.0032%. Konrad, so not worried. His stomach growled as he brought out one of the bars and began to tear into it, a plan formulating in his head. Jagatai, I like this kid. The moon was high in the sky as Damien began climbing the walls of the massive fortress. No one had luckily noticed him so far, obviously not being on the lookout for a scrawny little kid who was crazy enough to scale over 100-meter-tall fortress wall with nothing but the clothes on his back. Konrad, oh for fuck's sake. Corvus, he is surprisingly agile and strong, considering the state of his body. His hands digging into the stonework, leaving behind tiny holes where his fingers dug in. Climbing higher and higher. He could do it however, even in his scrawny state he still had more strength and control than even a fully grown human. He didn't know why. But he honestly didn't care. In the distance, two guards watched over the steam of their hot recaf as a dark shape slowly climbed up the straight fortress wall as if it was merely a hill meant for an easy hike. Spoke one, stuttering over his words. Should we call this in? And wake the commander? Said the other one, too busy dunking his nutrient bar into his recaf. No, just call it into the unurgent vox. That way we did something and can't be blamed for it. Robert, eye twitching, clearly annoyed. Lorgar, clearly, we can see that the general workforce hasn't changed much in the future. The first one nodded, just watching how this kid was scaling a 100-meter-tall wall with barely any difficulty. Just as he picked up the vox and sent the most appropriate code for the situation, the kid reached the top, and vanished into thin air. What the? He yelled, blinking even as he tapped his other partner on his shoulders who was staring equally bemused at the situation. They both looked at each other. Then down at their recafs as they carefully sniffed it. Starvation be damned, they both thought as they took another big gulp. Robert, I don't know whether to be disappointed, cry, or just do both. Damien reached the top of the wall, climbing over and falling flat on his face as he reached the walkway. He sat up, huffing away some of his hair that got in his face. Well, That wasn't so hard. He thought that this would have been a lot harder to do, considering it was the fortress. In fact, he was sure he would have been spotted by now. Konrad, facepalms so hard there is a sound of bones cracking. Corvus, that is, not the best way to go about on a stealth operation. Whatever. He snuck around, willing himself to be as invisible as he could, using the dark of the night to keep him hidden. But then he wondered, would the robed guys be able to see him in the dark? He knew that the Space Marines can see in the dark, so he needs to be careful to not be around them. Hopefully. At this point he kinda wished he had a corpse dust box to hide and sneak around in. He heard those were used for hiding a lot. Konrad, ah yes, the corpse dust box. Part of any Raven Guard stealth operation. At least Night Lords don't use that. Corvus, yes, I suppose the Night Lords like to go about the Everzer path. No one can spot you if there is no one to spot you. He saw a door slide open and one of those Space Marines walk out. He was massive. He quickly got over his awe however and bolted for it, silently running into the door as it slid shut behind him. He grinned to himself, he got in unnoticed. Just like the Night Haunter would do it. He giggled to himself as he stuck to the shadows and walked down the narrow hallway. Konrad turns around and smashes throne with head, breaking away part of the backrest while groaning loudly in embarrassment. "Watch Station Sigma, come in," came a voice over the Vox as the sleep-deprived operator of the watch station picked up the receiver. "Receiving." He spoke in a gruff voice, having awoken from an unintentional nap. "We scanned some unknown biometric signatures at rear entrance 212B. Can you check on the feed? Over." "Konrad, oh for fuck's sake. He makes that basic mistake? He's clearly not my kid." Emperor, so quick to throw him under the bus. "For shame." "Checking." He spoke even as he put down the Vox receiver and pressed the speaker rune. His fingers danced over the keyboard of runes configuring the security holocams for his watch station. He found the appropriate holocam and turned it back 2 minutes even as he lit up an IHO stick. He coughed. They only got more and more vile. They stopped putting filters with them as standard issue years ago at this point. The footage loaded and he saw as a shadow whizzed into the doorway. The watch station operator's eyes went wide. "Control. We have an intruder. Specify type." The man on the other end demanded. "I don't know, it was merely a blur. Saw a shadow dash by Terra," cried out the man. "Make sure the Crown Prince is safe, and form a squad to hunt down this shadow. And do it quietly if at all possible." Konrad, violently pointing at screen. "Emperor, he will get better. Were you born with it? Wait, bad choice of words. He just needs a mentor to teach him on what not to do. Someone like his Fath Dash." Konrad, hissing. The man hung up the Vox even as he took another drag of his IHO stick. Never a damned dull night in this fortress with the Crown Prince around. At this point, Damien was positive that something was wrong. He barely saw anyone, and he was dodging past people way too easily. He would have felt confident in all this, but this was the fortress of Hera. The most fortified and well-defended place in all of the Imperium. But well, all of that was a second thought. He had a slightly bigger issue. Mainly that he was horribly lost. "Konrad, boy. I am going to so thoroughly spank your ass and then teach you to prep." Dash shuts up instantly as he realizes that he implied that he cares. Fool grim, grinning. "Konrad, no." Jagatai, nodding along. He was so lost, he had no idea which direction he came in from. Or if he was in a corridor he already went through. He was positive that he was going in circles. Which coincidentally was a good thing, since he was confusing his trailing teams. Not that he knew that. He paused and tried to figure out what he could do and where he should go. He tried using his nose to sniff out where he was and where he should go. There were a lot of conflicting smells in the fortress, but he did pick up on a nice smell. It was food. "Konrad, don't forget your mission. You're not a fucking canid like Lehman." "Lehman, oi." Like a hungry dog, he trailed after the aroma of food. With how late it was most likely the kitchens preparing for breakfast in thinking on how long he was in here and how long ago since he left his house. Breakfast should be happening in 2 or 3 hours. So he had time. He snuck around, following the delicious aromas. His stomach growled as he patted it, hoping to find scraps in the bin. It's not stealing if it's in the bin. Konrad, someone stop this kid. Lehman, implying yet actually care. Konrad, my reputation is on the damn line. That's the only reason why. This is Team 9. Lost sight of the query. Over. Robot, that many teams to catch one child. Lorgar, one prime child. Robot, true, so it makes sense I suppose dash. This is Team 29. Saw target heading for the kitchens. Over. Lehman, wait what? Konrad, there, might be hope for him. Robot, no, no way. Team 56 here. We'll get him. Robot, are you kidding me? Konrad, nodding appreciatively, maybe there is hope for him yet. Team 58 here. We got a picked scent in from the wall's security footage. We're chasing after a young boy. Over. Team 57 here. Excuse my high gothic. But did you just confirm we are chasing after a fucking kid? Team 58 here. Yes. This child scaled the wall by himself with no tools. Hunter teams, this is command. Stand down. I say again, stand down. This is now another matter. Team 1 here. Please clarify command. Over. Lord Kurz has taken personal interest. All hunter teams are to return to barracks. Over. Entire family, look pointedly at Konrad. The many humans collectively shuddered. Many of the teams had been witness to the Primarch's terrible presence in the past. The thought of a little boy under the Primarch's unyielding will was inconceivable. One guard summed up their collective thoughts with a single line of, well, sucks to be that kid. By this point, Damien had found the kitchens and was currently half in and half out of a bin. He found lots of good scraps in there. He even got carrot peels. Sanguinius, he's inside of a trash can. Fukin, yes he is. Poor child. Corvus, he went through multiple teams trying to catch him and he's just inside of a trash can eating trash. Ferris, hunger drives people to do unreasonable things. He just kept munching on anything that was edible in there, never tasting a carrot before. They're actually kind of sweet. His eyes perked up as he heard a sound, it was soft and whining, like a machine, oh crap. He pushed himself out of the bin, wincing when it toppled over and crashed into the ground. He scrambled away, hoping that he received enough sustenance from his hasty meal to continue with his mission of freeing any unwilling people. He ran through the corridors, sticking to the shadows, climbing the walls to reach the rafters and jumping from chandelier to chandelier, even causing one to go crashing down. At one point, he even ran out a balcony and dropped down to one below it. Corvus, that is impressive. Try as he might, however, the shadow pursued, staying stuck to him like a hungry rat to its meal. Eventually, as he was trying to shake off the shadow, he felt something grab him by the back of his tunic and raised him off his feet and into the air. He curled up in the air, knowing that he was caught and he was going to get punished. His body was turned and who he saw made him nearly squeal with joy. Well, well, well. So you're the little rat that got into the fortress, spoke the giant to the captured boy. He was huge. Taller than a space marine, long black hair with dark eyes, pale almost dead-like skin, armor a deep dark blue, hands covered in talons. And the grin. Sharp teeth in a shark-like grin. This just had to be him. Anything to say? Damien couldn't stop it, his dark eyes that matched the Night Haunter's own were wide in awe as he took in the form of him. He let out a shriek of joy, face blooming into a wide grin, it's you. Konrad's face contorted in confusion. People don't squeal with joy when they saw him. What did you just say? It's you. The Night Haunter. Lehman, begins to chuckle. Magnus, and so it begins. Konrad winced as he was yet again reminded of his old hated moniker. No. Not anymore. But I saw the posters. Fear not the night. For it is haunted by our own Lord. Damien recited, remembering that he has a couple of those posters in his home. Lehman, full on howling with laughter. Horace, slapping his armrest in laughter. Konrad, wanting his life to end. Konrad wanted to groan and immediately go strangle whichever menial adept of the Munitorum came up with that damned line. He started walking towards the nearest security outpost. I'm such a big fan. Damien's hands and feet shook with excitement, not even caring he was around 8 to 9 feet from the ground now. I have a couple of your posters and I tell stories about you and dash. Lehman, falls off of his throne, clutching his stomach even as tears run down his face. The kid must be crazy, decided Konrad as his eyes briefly ran up and down the rags that covered the child. Homeless most likely, and very scrawny. Eating barely enough to survive. He smelled too. Reminding him of himself in his very early start back on Nostramo. That damned world could rot for eternity now for all he cared. Ever since then I decided that I was going to be just like you. Well, not with the killing part. I think blood is kinda icky really, but still. I learned as many laws as possible, I follow the rules, I make sure the other kids follow the rules too, I don't steal and I make sure to be a good citizen. You know, since justice is so important and all like you said and Damien had been talking non-stop, so excited to be right in front of his idol. Lehman, oh I fucking can't. Konrad, will he ever shut up? Mort Arian, just, so much talking. Konrad tuned most of it out as they turned the corner. No. Not the security outpost. Medici first. Poor kid was most likely just crazy. And yet, you snuck into the world's most secure fortress, causing a disruption to the entire security system, he looked forward, walking around the fallen chandelier. And damaged property. That is trespassing, causing distress and destruction of imperial property all in a matter of minutes. Okay, so that was my bad. I had a good reason to. Kids that I knew were taken away and I wanted to come see if I could help them or see if they were alright, but I got distracted by the smell of food cause I'm always really hungry all the time and I thought that, well, stealing is wrong, but it's not stealing if things are in the trash can, so I dug through those and well there was a lot of good stuff in there. I didn't mean to cause damage, I just thought that someone dangerous was coming after me so I ran and tried to get away. If I knew it was you chasing after me I would have been a whole lot more careful you know, but then again I think I would have turned around and said hello and tell you how much you're my hero and how cool I think you are and dash. Magnus, I know I talk a lot, but this is ridiculous. Lehman, wheezing from the floor almost like you. More laughter. Magnus, I do not just spew out verbal diarrhea without pausing. Horace, brother. Brother, you do actually. Konrad tuned the kid out completely as he strode into the apothecarium. Startling the Medici on duty and causing the poor guy to nearly spill his recaf everywhere. Lord Kurz. The Medici quickly saluted even as he glanced at the still talking kid. What can I do for you my lord? Found the rat, brought it here. Take it. It won't stop talking. Konrad nearly growled out, even though he was tuning the kid out, it was still annoying. Never been in a place like this before, it's so clean. Are you leaving me here? I have so many questions I need to ask you since you're my hero and everything, I just can't believe I was carried around by you of all people. I just can't believe all of this happened because I scaled the walls and tried to see how all my friends are doing. Well, they're not really my friends, they just pay me for my performances, but still I care about them and I just wanted to know they were alright and dash. Well, we can do the standard tests, but then I'm afraid it's back to the streets for him my lord. The Medici answered his lord, he was now tuning the boy out as well, since he was talking a mile a minute and didn't seem to be taking many breaths in between sentences. Back to the streets? He snuck into this fortress. Corvus, fair point. The Medici winced. I'm sorry my lord, but that is the policy with underaged children. That is of course, unless the Ultramarines want to take him. Ultramarines! Yelled the scrawny little kid suddenly, getting the attention of both of them. I don't want to be an Ultramarine. They're the ones who took all my friends. If anything, I'd rather be a Marine for any other chapter or whoever. He stuck his tongue out at the Medici, letting him fully know what he thought of the Ultramarines. Robot, well, there have been more subtle ways of refusing to join. Konrad let out a surprised snort. A kid living on Makraj who didn't idolize the ultramarines. Now that was precious. Then again, this is the same kid that is showering him with hero worship. I'll stay. Konrad said to the Medici. Do the tests. Emperor, look at you, being a good dad. Konrad, bad grumble. Wait, you will? Oh my gosh, this is so great. This means I can ask you all the questions I can. I'm just so honored to be around someone like you. You must be very busy all the time, you know, since there's a lot of bad guys in the galaxy and the war going on, you know. Do you still tear people apart with your claws, or is that a thing you don't do anymore? Cause like I said earlier, I think blood is icky, but fake blood isn't so bad. It looks kinda cool, especially if you get to act out the death scenes. Did I mention acting out death scenes is like my favorite thing to do on my performances dash. Very well, my lord, please put the child on the table. The Medici then put on a pair of gloves along with his white coat, even as he got a carrying case. Konrad put down the chatterbox onto the table even as the Medici gently coaxed Damien's overclothes off until he was left sitting in only his underwear. A big dumb grin still ever present on his face, the exact opposite of the pitiful state of his body. It was dirty, and extremely malnourished. Both the Medici and Konrad could easily count each of the child's ribs. There was barely any muscles, and even bone to go along with it. Mort Arian, correction to my earlier statement. Obviously we now see what happens when a prime child doesn't get the proper nutrients and nourishment as they grow up. Fukin, he is just a little sack of bones. Corvus, and yet he climbed 100-meter tall wall with his bare hands. Mort Arian, obviously we can see that his Primarch genes do come out to help him. Another hypothesis I have been working on concerning the children. It seems that even though they aren't full Primarches, they do gain a random set of abilities and perks that we have. Aegidius does have the brain power of a Primarch at times, even showing a resilience that we would have, same with Fukin's mutant Janin. We have also seen that Perrin looks to have taken to augmentation and his marine conversion like an avian to the air. While Venus has not shown any gifts yet, this is not like Freya, where from what we have seen has strength and speed. She made a space marine cry out in distress. And from what we can see of Damien, he does have the superior speed, reflexes, and makings of an infiltrator. All the extra calories he burns have been taking their toll on his body, but from what I can see, he is making do. And yet, this child, this malnourished, dirty, homeless, weakling of a child successfully managed to dodge the Night Haunter for a full minute. Yet I know I'm really skinny, but I swear I can never get enough food, you know. I'm just always so hungry all the time, even after I eat a meal that other kids eat. I'm not trying to be a pig, I just can't help it. I guess it's just another thing that makes me different from other kids, since they're not as fast as I am or as nimble. Or wait, am I bragging? Is bragging a bad thing? I don't mean to brag, I'm just kinda stating the truth, since you know I have to be honest all the time since that's really important. Even my mom told me that before she died 2 years ago. The Medici opened the carrying case, a look of pity on his face as he took out a rather sharp-looking hypodermic attached to some sort of screen. Slight pinch? He said even as he quickly managed to hit a vein on Damien's arm. It wasn't hard. They were showing as if he was looking at a pic from a medical textbook. What? Did you do something? I didn't feel anything. Then again, I don't really feel pain much, really weird, but it's okay. It just means I can go a lot longer than other kids since I don't really complain about that type of thing, since complaining doesn't really solve any of my problems. I wonder how long this will take. I feel kinda cold, and it feels weird to sit around in my undies, you know. The hypodermic sucked up the blood even as the Medici reached over to the counter and gave Damien a nutrition bar. Eat this, you need it. It was mostly because of the blood draw, standard procedure. But the Medici had to be careful. Give him too much at once and the poor boy could even die. The nutrient bar was eaten in nearly one gulp, but they were positive he chewed thoroughly and ate it in a matter of seconds. This did little to stop his long tirade of talking. So as I was saying, kinda cold in here, you know. Hey, does your armor keep you warm or do you like it being cold? I never know what it's like in armor like that, so what's it like wearing armor like that? Is it comfortable? Do you kinda forget it's there? Or do you always feel it? Is it kinda like how your nose is always in your sight but your mind just kinda ignores it dash? Everyone is just tuning out the talking. The device in the medica's hand pinged and caused his eyes to go wide with surprise. What is it? Kurz asked impatiently. Nothing, and that's the thing. No diseases, no stunts in growth, hormones are completely fine, digestion is completely normal. The medici looked up at Konrad. Besides appearing malnourished and dirty, the child is, well, completely healthy. Mort Aryan, hypothesis confirmed. Well yeah, I'm healthy, I never get sick once. I just kinda keep going and going and going and going and going and going. One time I was able to stay up for like a week without sleep, and I barely cared. It only took me until it was 2 weeks where I finally had to fall asleep. It was wild, but I was up and about again in the morning after a full night's rest and I was fine like those 2 weeks didn't even happen. Can you do that, or am I just weird and it's just me? I hope I'm not a mutant. That would be bad since I know mutants aren't tolerated. I heard about that from a pamphlet someone was reading out loud. Since I can't read, I gotta keep up with my learning since my mom told me that using my eyes is important, especially since hers didn't work at all dash. Konrad had enough. Just give him the standard compatibility test for all active chapters and be done with it. That will take about an hour if I am going to run it through all dash. Just mine then. He spat, truly irritated now. I don't know how much longer I can handle him just rambling. Of course, my lord. The medici hastily spoke as he retreated to a cogitator and plugged in the hypodermic device that he had used to draw Damien's blood. Should only take about a minute or two dash. The medici cleared up as he plugged in the device. Only for a ping to sound immediately and the screen to go green. What? Shouted the medici in utter surprise. What now? Asked Konrad, seriously contemplating just walking out. My lord. I think I need to do a second test dash. Oh, for the love, get out of my way. Konrad moved and shoved the medici to the side, looking at the screen on his own. What he saw truly stunned him for the first time in millennia. Chances of gene seed rejection. 0%. Chances of Astartes organ acceptance. 99.87%. Chances of augmentation success. 97.35%. Genetic makeup match. 100%. The entire damn family, slowly turning to look at a somehow even paler Konrad. Horace turns to Konrad, with a smug look on his face. So, you wanted proof? Konrad, shut up. Horace, why? We had to wait for proof to come up and now here it is. Congratulations. You're a father. Konrad, I'll fucking murder you. Hey, what's on the screen? I can't really see it from here, I'm kinda too little to see. It must be important for you two to be crowding around it, almost like the markets near where I live. It's always crowded there, with humans and Eldar there. The undermarkets aren't as crowded as the upper markets, but the undermarkets are more dangerous than the upper markets. But I gotta say the upper markets are so overpriced, dash. Shut up. Quietly spoke Konrad, causing Damien to instantly fall silent. For a moment, the only thing heard was the breathing of the Primarch as his mind contemplated and thought how such a thing was even possible. How? Oh, he said she was blind. Child. Konrad spoke again, never turning. Describe your mother. Damien sat up straighter. My mom? Oh, she was really nice and pretty. She had long brown hair, her eyes weren't working at all, she was actually completely blind, so they were like milky. She was a bit darker than me and you, but that isn't really hard to do, since we were both really pale. She said it was important for me to eat since she said that my metabolism was going to be really high for someone like me, which I don't really understand why, it's just kinda always like this. Oh wait, my mom. My mom came from off-planet years ago. She said she was on this planet that was under attack and then she was saved by a bunch of space marines that appeared over her planet and they saved them, but their planet kinda got destroyed so they stayed on the ship for a while. But she said she met my dad on there. I don't really know my dad, she said he was kinda scary to talk to, but whatever I guess. She died 2 years ago, since she tried to work but we never got a lot of money and I needed to eat a lot more than she did, but it wasn't so bad since we lived in an alleyway next to a moisture collector. So what else do you wanna know? Sanguinius, no offense to Konrad, but how did he get with such a wonderful sounding lady? Rogel, because she was blind. Emperor, way to bring down the hammer, Rogel. Rogel, my hammer is back aboard the Fallon. Perturabo, smacks. Konrad's mind was a roller coaster of emotion. How? How did this fucking universe keep fucking shit up for him? He wasn't ready to be a father. He failed with his gene sons. So how could he handle one actually born of his own blood? He turned to look at him. For the first time truly taking in his sight. The pale skin, dark eyes, darker loose hair. That was obviously his. But that nose, the shape of his chin. The way his smile curled his cheeks. The dimples. Fuck. Fuck 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 fuck. Fuck. Think. Fucking think. What could he do? He could. Medici. Yes my lord. Give the kid a bath. Angren, ha. Pussy. Konrad, too worried and angry to react. That would buy him some time as he stepped outside of the apothecarium, looking at the rising sun in the distance through one of the massive windows even as the Medici coaxed Damien towards the showers in the back rooms. Fuck, what was he going to do? Wait, what was the kid's name again? Shit, maybe he shouldn't have tuned him out. The Lord Commander of the Imperium had stopped by on Macridge as a mere pit stop on his way to the other edge of Imperium Secundus. But he couldn't resist taking a moment in his office to himself. Robert, why are we on me all of a sudden? Emperor, knowing Konrad. Wait for it. His hands flew over documents and paperwork even as his mind was occupied by another matter entirely. He never needed his full attention for the damned papers anyway. He was roused out of his thoughts by a knock on his door. Enter. Robert called out, wondering who could be wanting his attention this early already. The door was opened and Robert had to nearly pinch himself when he saw who it was and what he was carrying. There was his brother, Konrad, at the door, looking panicked and holding a bundle of a towel that was wrapped around a child that looked a lot like his brother. Emperor, right on schedule. He looked between the two of them, the boy, then his brother, the boy, then his brother, then the boy who was now waving at him, then back at his brother who was quickly and desperately motioning towards the boy with his eyes and head. Sanguinius, now that he is cleaned up, he is kind of cute. Big dark eyes popping out of a towel, adorable. Robert put the documents down and put his hands together, tapping against his mouth while leaning forward. And said the first thing that came to mind. So when did you get a son, Konrad? Before Konrad could speak, the boy, Damien, gasped really loudly and practically shrieked in joy, I'm his son. Lorgar, pffffffft dying of laughter. Most of the family is laughing at how loudly and surprised Damien is that Konrad is his own father. Konrad, Uyug. Konrad looked as if he was going to have a migraine, letting out a long, shuddering sigh. According to my calculations. About 7-ish years ago. Robert looked to the boy, how old are you, boy? Damien was silent for a while, working up the courage to speak to the Lord Commander. He softly spoke to him, 7, sir. Horus, like we need any more proof. Konrad. Konrad, I really don't fucking care. How the fuck did I get a kid? Who was crazy enough to sleep with me? How was I crazy enough to sleep with someone? Lehman, best questions you ever asked. Rogel, the only person who would want to initiate coitus with Konrad was quite literally a blind woman. Oh, now you're silent. Konrad cried out, one hand coming up and rubbing at his face. Please don't get him to talk, I can't stand another long tirade of his. You get used to it. Spoke Gilliman by pure experience. No. Not with this one. I nearly got a migraine with him constantly talking. From when I found him, picked him up, walked to the apothecarium, to the testing and even after it, he wouldn't stop. Konrad ground out, looking down at Damien who grinned sheepishly. Mort Arian, future Konrad has a point. I don't mean to. I just talk and my mind just goes and goes and goes. Shut up. No. Konrad immediately cut off Damien, stopping him from going on another tirade. Robert sighed before getting up, rising to his massive height and walking around his desk. What do you plan on doing with him? Konrad looked back to his brother. I don't know. I don't know how to take care of a kid. You know what happened to my own Jean sons. You take him. The Lord Commander gave his brother a look which simply screamed, are you fucking serious right now? No. Robert, did you seriously just try dash? Konrad, fuck off Papa Smurf. I am in no damn mood. Konrad let out a deep sigh, holding the kid out and away from him and towards his brother with one hand. Take him. Brother. Spoke Robert calmly. Look him in his eyes dash. No, Konrad immediately cut him off. Look your son in his eyes and then tell me that. Internally screaming, Konrad turned Damien around and looked him in the eye. Damien, even before when he looked at Konrad with all that hero worship, now looked like Konrad was the greatest gift in the entire galaxy wrapped up on a shiny silver platter, and it was addressed to him. The smile on him was so open and what the hell is wrong with him? He couldn't take care of a kid. He didn't know the first thing about taking care of a child, and just this was such a bad idea. It would be so much easier to just hand him over to Gilliman and... No, he can't now. Shit. What did you do to me? Konrad asked out loud, unable to look away from the situation. Konrad, oh fuck off. No. No. Made you realize the glory of fatherhood. Spoke Gilliman. Already typing something into a datapad. Your name, young one. Oh. My name is Damien, sir. I don't right know what it means, actually. My mom gave it to me and I'm sure it must mean something since most names do have a meaning to them. I just don't know what mine means really. Wait, if the Night Haunter is my dad, does this mean my full name is actually Damien Kurz? That actually sounds kinda cool now that I think about it, kinda like I have a family again. Wait, if he's my dad and he calls you brother, does that make you my uncle, and does this mean I don't have to eat trash anymore? What's going to happen to me now, actually? I just have a lot of questions now, since this is the first time someone's actually answering my questions and dash. Konrad, fuck. No, he started talking again. Gilliman nodded along as he input something into the datapad. The fortress defenses will now recognize him as friendly. You can talk to any of your remaining sons, or, in my recommendation, any of the new ones about his personal guard escort. If luck will see it through, I can get him the same tutors as Aegidius has. Konrad, Prime's claws you and I need to have a talk. Blueberry. Robert, for what? Future me is only doing everything that is needed to make sure the kid is taken care of. He's doing more for him than you did. And you're his father. Future me only knew Damien for 5 minutes. Konrad, continues grumbling. I get tutors? I've never had a tutor before, so what do tutors even do? What do they do? Tutor you? Is tutoring a thing that people do? Is that like school? Because I've never actually been to school, you know, so I don't know how I'm gonna do actually dash. Gilliman looked up at the poor boy. His room is 2 floors down from Aegidius, the serfs there will know. They are also going to send a tailor to it immediately so the child can get some clothes. Gilliman then spotted some bone poking through Damien's skin that was peeking from beyond the massive soft towel. And for Tara's sake, feed the poor boy. He then turned and sat down behind his desk, going back to his paperwork as if they weren't there at all. Am I actually getting real food now? 'Cause right before the Night Haunter picked me up, I was actually eating scraps out of the bin in the kitchens. The very expensive heirloom fountain pen snapped in half in Gilliman's hands as he looked up startled at Damien and then glared at Konrad. His eye twitching in the way it did when he learned that something threatened Aegidius. Gilliman, oh come on. Not another one. Fukin, do you care more for a pen than a child who was eating trash? Gilliman, I care for both. But one was used by my father. Fukin. Rogel, father could not have used dash. Gilliman, my adoptive father. It's one of the few things he actually left me. Fukin, I withdraw my accusations. And this was his nephew, not that far off he supposed. Robert stared at Konrad, the angry look not leaving his face, until it was replaced by a grin. Konrad stared back. I didn't know he existed until an hour ago, you know. Please, Nephew. He said, looking at Damien with a genuine smile. He's not the Night Haunter. He's father. Remember that. Only proper. Causing Damien to squeal in joy in Konrad's arms. Damien just thought that this was the best day ever. It was a great idea to break into the fortress of Hera. Konrad meanwhile just instantly wanted to punch Robert in his practical face and then disappear. The hollow projector stopped. Konrad's head slowly turned. The sound of stone grinding on stone audible in the air. I'm going to kill you, Gilliman. Gilliman turned towards Konrad. Why? I understand that you may be slightly uncomfortable, but dash. Slightly uncomfortable. Konrad roared as he stood from his throne, practically shaking in rage. I'm just slightly uncomfortable. I just fucking sat here while all of you were having a grand fucking time just poking fun at my expense and wouldn't leave well enough alone. All because father, he practically spat the word out, decided he wanted to pick on me. The Emperor raised his hands in defeat with a grin. I warned you, Sonny. Don't screw with me. Besides, would have happened sooner or later. Konrad whirled on the Emperor, snarling at the Golden Man, This is why I can't fucking stand you. I'm actually angry and humiliated that you decided to show this off, and you have the gall to sit there and act like nothing is wrong. Like I'm overreacting. Because you are. Cut in, Lehman. We're all fathers in here, well probably. Point is, we all have to deal with it. You're clearly loyal too. I fail to see the issue. Because I'm embarrassed. Konrad threw his hands into the air with a scoff. I made this clear from the beginning. No one cared. Konrad, this all started because all of you wanted to embarrass and poke fun at me. Gilliman spoke up, giving Konrad a look. Need I also remind you that everyone has been getting embarrassed this entire bonding experience? You've had the time of your life poking fun at everyone else's expense. Not so good that it's happening to you. Konrad let out a low growl and activated his thunder claws and raised one, intent on causing harm. He didn't even begin to strike when it was grabbed by a powerful gauntleted hand. He whirled on who dared do so, only to look at the stern face of Horus. Brother! He commanded. Don't you dare! Konrad growled again as he desperately attempted to free his caught arm. Son! The Emperor stood and walked over to the struggling Night Haunter. You must control yourself. We have all suffered humiliation and eye-opening experiences with these vids. Konrad barked at his father's face, spitting Nostramun curse words. Rich coming from you. You're the one who loves it when others get the attention, but whenever it's on you, suddenly is wrong. Need I remind you, Konrad, of just how courteous I have been? And remind you further that in the future, you died a traitor's death. One that you sentenced yourself to. Do you think I need reminding about that? You do. Because you are quite clearly alive. Helping imperial refugees and fighting for mankind once more. Konrad deflated, knowing his father was right. In the future vids, he's dead, but when they looked at the darkest one, suddenly he's alive. Alive, well, and helping others. And he had no idea what happened to make him like that, no way of knowing how or why he decided to forgive himself. And that frightened him more than any idea of fatherhood ever could.